I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of my tuxedo, the gleam of my reflection reminding me of the world I had built. The world that everyone believed was perfect. As a fashion designer in Los Angeles, I had crafted a name that was synonymous with elegance, innovation, and sophistication. But none of that mattered now. Tonight, the prestigious Gala of Fashion was being held, the one event where the industry's most influential figures gathered to witness what would become the trend of the year. My latest collection was ready, set to be unveiled on the grand stage. Yet all I could focus on was the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach. A feeling that, despite all the glitz and glamour, I was about to face something far darker than any runway show or collection reveal. Rachel, my wife of 5 years, had always been by my side, a constant presence through every success and every setback. Beautiful, intelligent, and fiercely loyal, at least that's what I thought. Her role as the director of marketing for my fashion house was critical. She handled the business side while I focused on design. Together we made a formidable team. Or so I believed. But something had shifted. The trust we had built was slowly unraveling and I could feel it, though I couldn't explain how. The first inkling had come when Rachel had begun spending more time away from home, canceling dinner plans and making excuses for late nights at the office. She had always been a workaholic, but this felt different. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that the pressure of her position must be taking its toll. It wasn't until the morning of the gala that I found the proof, the undeniable evidence of the betrayal that had been quietly brewing under my nose. I had gone into Rachel's office that morning to deliver a set of final sketches for the gala's presentation. Her desk, usually neat and organized, had an aura of disarray. Papers were strewn across the surface, and her phone, usually locked with a password I had long memorized, was left unlocked. Something didn't sit right. On a whim I picked it up. The first message I saw made my heart stop. It was a picture. One of Rachel and Sean, a model I had just signed to my agency. The image was intimate, their arms wrapped around each other, their smiles more than friendly. It wasn't just a candid photo from a shoot. This was something personal. Something private. I scrolled down and there were more. Texts, plans, meetups. A secret they had shared that was never meant to reach my eyes. The room spun around me. My breath caught in my throat. Rachel, my partner in both business and life, had betrayed me. Not only had she been unfaithful, but she had also manipulated the trust one had placed in her as both my wife and my business partner. Sean, the young model I had signed with hopes of bringing fresh talent into the fashion world, had become more than just an asset to my agency. He had become the instrument of my deepest pain. I stood frozen, staring at the screen, unable to comprehend the enormity of what I had just uncovered. My vision blurred as the realization sank in. I had built my career on the foundation of trust, both in my craft and in those closest to me. And now it was all a lie. In the midst of my shock and betrayal, a thought crossed my mind, one that chilled me to the bone and sparked something cold, calculated, and dangerous within me. I would make them pay. I wasn't going to let this go without consequences. Divorce would be too simple, too quick, too clean. No, I would expose them. I would expose everything. My reputation, my work, and my heart, they would all be transformed into something bigger, something that would make the world see them for what they truly were. I wasn't sure yet how I would do it, but one thing was certain. Rachel and Sean would never know what hit them. As I stood there, staring at my reflection in the mirror, I realized something. This betrayal, this raw wound, could be my greatest weapon. The gala was tonight. I could already see it in my mind, the runway, the flashing lights, the world watching. The media would be there. They would see the collection I had spent months perfecting. But more than that, they would see the message I would send. They would see the truth. They would see their downfall. I clenched my jaw. My mind was made up. Tonight, everything would change. The gala night arrived with all its usual fanfare, red carpets, flashing cameras, and the hum of anticipation hanging in the air. The ballroom at the Beverly Hills Hotel was swarming with celebrities, designers, journalists, and tastemakers. The kind of crowd that made your heart race, both from excitement and from the pressure of being under constant scrutiny. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me as I entered the venue, my tuxedo a perfect fit, my face composed, yet beneath the surface a storm was brewing. Rachel was by my side as always. Her beauty turned heads just like it always had. She wore a sparkling silver gown, her dark hair styled to perfection. She smiled at me and for a brief moment, I wondered if she felt anything at all. Did she know that I knew? The thought flickered through my mind, but I quickly pushed it aside. She was too good at hiding it, too practiced at pretending. But tonight, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Tonight she would face the truth. We made our way to the backstage area, where the final preparations for the fashion show were underway. The models were being dressed, the lighting technicians checked the spotlights, and the runway was being set up for the grand reveal. I could hear the murmur of conversations, but I felt detached from it all, as if I were watching a performance rather than taking part in it. "David, everything's ready for the show. Are you feeling nervous?" Rachel's voice cut through my thoughts and I turned to look at her. She seemed genuinely excited, as if everything was fine between us. "Nervous?" I repeated, forcing a smile. "Not at all. This is just another show, Rachel." She smiled, oblivious to the storm that was raging within me. "You always say that, but I know how much this collection means to you." I nodded, but my thoughts were elsewhere. The collection. Yes, the collection was everything. It was my triumph, my masterpiece, but it would also be my weapon. I had spent weeks creating pieces that would be impossible to ignore. Each design had a hidden message, a hidden truth embedded within the fabric itself. The colors, the cuts, the textures, they all had a deeper meaning. Each piece told a story of betrayal, of manipulation, of secrets. And at the heart of it, Rachel and Sean's affair would be exposed. I had spent countless sleepless nights in my studio, stitching those secrets into the very fabric of the clothes. The patterns of broken hearts, hidden symbols that only the sharpest eyes would catch, and most importantly, a contract, their contract, woven into the final piece of the collection. The plan was simple. I would unveil the designs with an elegance that would draw attention to their beauty. But only after the show would the media have the time to scrutinize every detail. By then it would be too late to stop the truth from coming out. As I took my position behind the stage, waiting for the first model to take her walk down the runway, I could feel the tension in the air. The lights dimmed and the music started. The first model appeared, her silhouette lit up by the spotlight as she confidently strutted down the runway. The audience gasped as the first piece was revealed. A striking, structured dress made of dark velvet with a pattern that seemed to swirl in a chaotic, almost violent way. Rachel's eyes glinted with pride as she watched the show unfold, unaware that every piece she saw was a betrayal in disguise. But as each model walked, I could see the reactions. The whispers began, soft at first, then louder. Some of the media were already taking notes, some nodding in understanding, others squinting at the unusual patterns in the designs. The next model wore a suit made of deep red fabric, its sleek lines interrupted by jagged seams that appeared almost like scars on the body. The audience murmured, intrigued by the unconventional design. But to anyone who knew what to look for, it was a glaring metaphor, the deep wounds of betrayal, stitched together with the same care that had once bound me to Rachel. Then came the final piece, the one I had crafted specifically for this moment. A white gown with delicate silver embroidery that seemed innocent at first glance. But up close, the intricate patterns formed words, hidden phrases that described the details of Rachel and Sean's affair. They were subtle, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. The gown was perfection in its execution, an angelic vision of beauty that contrasted with the poison it carried. The media erupted in confusion as the gown's hidden story became evident to those paying close attention. Photographers swarmed to capture the details, their flashes lighting up the room like a series of rapid gunshots. I could see the shock on Rachel's face as the realization began to settle in. She turned to me, her eyes wide, but I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. Sean walked into the spotlight next, his presence almost theatrical in nature, a final piece in my puzzle. His confident smile faltered when he saw the chaos unfolding around him. The cameras weren't just on the models anymore, they were on him, on Rachel, on me. The truth was no longer hidden. It was out in the open for everyone to see. Rachel's gaze flickered between me and Sean, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. But it was too late for her to fix this. Too late for both of them. I didn't need to say anything. The collection had done all the talking for me. The aftermath of the show was a blur. The fashion world, once so enamored with the beauty of my designs, was now consumed with the scandal that had erupted. News outlets scrambled to piece together the details, and social media exploded with every conceivable angle on the story. The media had their field day and I, for the first time in my life, stood on the other side of the spotlight. Rachel and Sean were no longer the stars of the evening. They were the pariahs. Their names, once associated with beauty and success, now carried the weight of a dark secret. The press didn't care about the fashion anymore. They cared about the affair, the betrayal, the manipulation. They pored over every detail of the hidden messages in my collection. What had once been considered a revolutionary fashion statement was now being dissected as the ultimate revenge plot, a move so calculated and precise that it could only have come from the deepest well of pain. As the night unfolded, I stayed backstage watching the chaos ripple through the ballroom. Rachel was surrounded by journalists, her face pale and her eyes wide with panic. Sean, who had been the golden boy of the fashion world just hours earlier, stood off to the side, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He looked out of place now, stripped of the adoration he once enjoyed. I could hear their voices rise above the din of the reporters' questions. "David, Rachel began, but I didn't let her finish. There was nothing left to say. I stepped into the light, my footsteps deliberate, calculated. I could feel every eye on me, and for the first time in years I welcomed it. This wasn't the praise I had received for my designs. This was something far more satisfying. This was power. The power to destroy, to expose, to make them see the truth in front of the world." The room fell silent as I approached Rachel. She tried to reach out to me, but I took a step back, never letting my gaze leave hers. She looked desperate, her hand trembling as it hovered between us. "David, please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "This isn't what you think." I felt a sharp pang in my chest, but I didn't show it. "What is it, Rachel?" I asked, my voice steady, my words cold. "What should I think? Should I think you never loved me? Or should I think that I was just a stepping stone for you to climb higher in your own twisted little game?" Her face flushed, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerability she had always kept hidden from me. The facade she had carefully constructed for so long was now cracking. But it was too late for sympathy, too late for apologies. "You've always been so consumed with your career," she said, her voice shaking with anger now. "You never saw what was happening between us. You were too busy with your designs, your shows. Sean and we never meant to hurt you." I let her words hang in the air, the lies twisting around me like smoke. "You think this is about my career?" I asked, stepping closer to her, my voice rising. "This is about trust. This is about everything I thought I knew about you, everything I thought was real, being a lie." Rachel flinched, and I could see the tears welling in her eyes. But there was no pity left in me. No mercy. "Rachel, you've been lying to me for months. And now you want me to believe that it was just nothing?" I scoffed. "You think I'll forget? That I'll let you walk away from this?" Sean, who had been standing silently nearby, finally spoke. His voice was shaky, but there was a hint of defiance in it. "David, we never wanted to hurt you. We just—" I turned on him, my eyes hardening. You're just as guilty. You've been playing me from the start. You were never just a model, were you? You were never just a piece of my collection. You were her accomplice, her partner in crime." He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The shame was written all over his face. The golden boy had fallen from grace, and now, he was nothing more than a casualty of my plan. I looked at Rachel one last time. She was broken now, the mask she had worn so effortlessly shattered beyond repair. I didn't feel pity though. I didn't feel anything for her anymore. "Get out of my life, Rachel," I said, my voice steady, final. "This is over." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Rachel opened her mouth to protest, but I turned away from her, walking back toward the exit of the ballroom. I didn't care what she said anymore. She had lost everything. I could feel the eyes of the entire room on me as I stepped into the hallway. I didn't look back. The aftermath of the gala hit like a storm, but this time I was the one standing tall in the center of it. Rachel's name was dragged through the mud, and Sean's once promising career was over before it even truly began. The press had a field day, but for once I didn't mind being in the eye of the storm. The world was watching, and this time it wasn't just for my fashion designs, it was for the scandal that had shattered the lives of two people who had betrayed me. Days passed in a haze of interviews, headlines, and endless phone calls. The fashion world buzzed with the consequences of Rachel and Sean's actions. My agency, once teetering on the edge of crisis, was now thriving in the chaos. Clients and models who had once hesitated to work with me now saw me as a force to be reckoned with. In a strange way, the scandal had propelled me to a new level of notoriety and success, though not the way I had ever anticipated. But as I walked into the empty office I once shared with Rachel, I felt an odd emptiness that no amount of success could fill. The world was mine for the taking now, but it came at the cost of everything I had built with Rachel. I stood in front of her desk, the place where so many decisions had been made, and yet it felt foreign to me now. The reminders of her were everywhere. Framed photographs on the walls, the velvet chair she always sat in, the personal touches she had added to the space. It all felt like a distant memory. I walked over to the window, looking out over the city. The skyline stretched before me like a sea of possibility, but there was still something missing. It wasn't just Rachel that I had lost, it was the version of myself that I had been when she was by my side. I had been so consumed with my career, my success, that I never noticed how much I had depended on her. But now I had to move forward. I had no choice. I called my assistant, Karen, and told her to schedule a meeting with my legal team. The first order of business was the dissolution of my partnership with Rachel. There was no need to drag it out any longer. We would sell the house, divide the assets, and part ways. The second order of business was more complicated. My new vision for my fashion house, without Rachel, without the distractions, without the lies, needed to take shape. I had to start fresh. I couldn't just rebuild what we had, I had to rebuild it into something greater, something that reflected the lessons I had learned in the wake of betrayal. By the time I met with my legal team, I had already begun to form a new plan. I was going to create a brand new company, my own house of fashion. A place where I could build the kind of legacy I wanted, without the weight of Rachel's influence. It was time to leave the past behind. Days turned into weeks, and the media frenzy surrounding the affair slowly began to die down, replaced by new scandals, new headlines. But for me, the damage had already been done. My name was known by everyone now, not just for my talents but for my strength, my ability to overcome. I didn't just recover from the betrayal, I thrived because of it. I launched the new fashion house with a press release that left no room for doubt. My vision was clear, bold, innovative, and uncompromising. I would no longer design for the sake of pleasing others. I would design for myself. And if others didn't like it, so be it. The first collection under the new brand was a complete departure from anything I had done before. It was dark, edgy, and raw, pieces that were bold enough to make a statement, but elegant enough to command attention. It was a collection that spoke of resilience and rebirth, a phoenix rising from the ashes. The models I chose for the show reflected this new spirit. They weren't the usual faces of the industry, there were no sweet, soft smiles or polished looks. These models had attitude, they had fire. They were there to own the runway just as I had learned to own my story. When the collection debuted, the response was electric. Critics were stunned by the shift in direction. Some praised the boldness, while others called it a radical move. But the most important thing was that they were talking about it. They couldn't ignore it. My fashion house was born from the ashes of a scandal, and it was here to stay. As the weeks passed, the orders came in. High-end boutiques and global fashion chains wanted my pieces. My name was now synonymous with innovation, strength, and rebellion. I had taken the pain of betrayal and transformed it into something greater than I had ever imagined. Yet, even as I signed contracts and held meetings with industry giants, there was still a part of me that longed for something I couldn't quite define. The success was intoxicating, but it didn't fill the hole that had been left behind. My new empire was growing, but I was still haunted by the remnants of the past, the broken pieces of a life I had once thought would last forever. I pushed those thoughts aside. I couldn't afford to dwell on them. Months had passed since the debut of my new fashion house, and the world continued to shift around me. The industry had fully embraced my new brand, and the world of fashion was mine for the taking. But despite the whirlwind of success, there were moments, rare and fleeting, when I found myself standing alone in the quiet corners of my office, reflecting on the life I had left behind. I had built this empire with my own hands, taking what was left of my old life, my shattered reputation, and turning it into something powerful, something to be feared. The media had stopped focusing on Rachel and Sean. They had moved on to other scandals, other distractions. But I couldn't shake the feeling that, despite all my achievements, I was still haunted by what had happened. The phone rang, snapping me out of my reverie. It was Karen, my assistant. "David, there's someone here to see you," she said, her tone tentative. "It's Rachel." I froze. My first instinct was to hang up, to turn her away. But something inside me, curiosity perhaps, compelled me to say, "Send her in." The door opened and she walked in, her presence still as striking as it had been the day we first met. But there was nothing graceful about her entrance now. Her steps were slow, hesitant. Her once perfect hair was loose, her face pale, the weight of months of guilt and loss evident in her eyes. "David," she said softly, her voice quieter than I remembered, "I need to talk to you." I didn't speak at first. I just watched her, taking in the woman who had once been everything to me. There was a time when her smile could light up my world. But now it felt like a distant memory, a dream that I had long since awakened from. "You're here. After everything that happened, you still think there's something left to talk about?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. I had no desire to hear her excuses, her apologies. "I'm not here for excuses," she replied, her voice steady but laced with sorrow. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I've spent every day since that night regretting what I did to you, to us. I felt a tightness in my chest, but I fought it down. I had no time for weakness now, no room for sentimentality. You're sorry? I repeated, almost mocking the words. You're sorry for destroying everything we built? For betraying me? For taking everything I trusted and ripping it apart? Is that really what you're here to say? She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, but not just for what I did. For what I became. I never meant for it to go this far, David. I was lost. I was trying to prove something to myself, to you. And I failed. I looked at her, the sharp edge of anger still lingering in my chest. The anger that had fueled every step of my journey. You failed, Rachel. You failed me. And now you want forgiveness? You want to come back into my life. I'm not asking for that, she said quickly, shaking her head. I just need you to know that I've changed. That I'm not the person I was when this all happened. I studied her face for a long time, watching her eyes, looking for any sign of the woman I once knew. But all I saw was someone broken, someone who had lost their way. And what am I supposed to do with that, Rachel? I finally asked. You've already taken everything from me. The trust, the love, the future we had. There's nothing left to rebuild. For a moment, the room was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air between us. She took a step forward as if she were about to reach for me, but I stepped back, my hands clenched at my sides. I'm not asking you to rebuild anything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm just asking for peace. For you to let go of the anger, the hate. Because I know that if you don't, it will keep destroying you. I've seen it happen, David. I've seen how much this has changed you. I didn't respond immediately. My mind raced, torn between the emotions that had been festering for months and the cold, calculated part of me that had already let go. The part that had already moved on, had already risen from the ashes of my old life. I don't need your peace, Rachel, I said quietly, my voice firm. I've already found mine. It's not in you. It's in what I've built, what I'm still building. That's where I find my strength now. She nodded, a sad smile forming on her lips. I figured as much. I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness, David. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. And with that, she turned and walked out of my office. I watched her leave, the door clicking shut behind her, and I felt something stir deep within me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't relief. It was finality. The chapter was over. There was nothing more to say. Rachel was a ghost now, a shadow of the life I had once imagined for myself. And the man I had become was someone who no longer needed her to define him. I stood up, walking to the window once more. The city sprawled out before me, a canvas of possibility. I had made my peace. I had taken the pain and turned it into power, into success. There was nothing left to prove. And as the sun set behind the horizon, I realized that I no longer needed to look back. The future was mine.